Chapter 509. The Departure of the Sword Saint. Buzz buzz buzz. A low, rumbling sound echoed in the air as an armed helicopter hovered above the safe house, slowly descending. Lin Chier and the other four stood in front of the house, their clothes flapping wildly in the wind generated by the rotor blades. They stood firm as rocks, their eyes filled with a serious expression. Xin Qingzhu was still at the hospital taking care of the ninth seat, while Jiang Er had been placed in the safe house. After all, Commander Yi only wanted to see Zhou Ping and the five of them. Jiang Er was not suitable to appear at this moment. Once the helicopter stabilized, a figure draped in a dark red cloak lightly leaped down from the cabin and quickly walked toward them. He was the Supreme Commander of the Night Watchmen of Daxia Yi Fan. Commander Yi. Upon seeing Yi Fan, Lin Chier and the others immediately saluted. Yi Fan's gaze swept over them and he nodded slightly. The situation is urgent, so I won't chat with you for long. Zhou Ping, is your stuff ready? Zhou Ping was still dressed in a black shirt, carrying a sword case, his hands empty. I have nothing to prepare, he said calmly. Commander Yi, what exactly happened in the north? Bai Li Pangpang couldn't help but ask. Yi Fan glanced at him and sighed helplessly. 15 minutes ago, the second altar prepared by the ancient god church was activated in Tianhe City. The second altar? Chao Yuan frowned tightly. Tianhe City, isn't that the place where Fengdu is located? And Qingyu added. Yes. Yi Fan nodded. The ancient god church has been preparing for two scenarios from the start. One altar for the god of the underworld is located in the south, to be awakened by one of the three ancient evil gods, Murmurs and his followers. The second altar for the wind god is in the north, to be awakened by another ancient evil god, Moon Huai, along with three members of the ancient god church. After Osiris's death, the second wind god altar was activated in a very short time, summoning the Egyptian wind god Shu. Another nine-pillar god. Lin Chia pondered for a moment. What about the other Daxia gods? Since the Egyptian gods have directly entered our territory, they shouldn't just sit back and do nothing, right? Yi Fan and Zhou Ping exchanged glances. Yi Fan paused for a moment before speaking. Except for the Emperor of Fengdu, the other Daxia gods are all somewhere repairing the source of the heavenly court and cannot leave for a short time. The source of the heavenly court? What is that? The heavenly court is the divine realm belonging to the Daxia gods, Yi Fan explained. For example, the divine realm of the Japanese gods is in Takamagara, the divine realm of the Norse gods is in Asgard, and the divine realm of the Greek gods is on Mount Olympus. The divine realm is the source of the gods' divine power. 100 years ago, in order to block the mist, the Daxia gods transformed into boundary stones and entered reincarnation, causing the heavenly court to collapse. Without the source of divine power, not only can the Daxia gods that have already emerged not use their full strength, but those gods still in reincarnation also cannot revive in a short time. More than a year ago, after the Daxia gods emerged and shocked other divine realms, they immediately went into seclusion to repair the heavenly court. However, repairing the source of the heavenly court is essentially a process of restoring the great Tao, which cannot be interfered with by external forces. Therefore, until the heavenly court is repaired, they cannot take action. Upon hearing this news, Lin Chier and the others felt their hearts sink. The inability of the Daxia gods to take action meant that during this period, no matter what happened, humanity would have to solve it on its own. How long will it take to repair the source of the heavenly court? Lin Chia asked. According to the predictions of the primordial heavenly venerable, it will take at least 2 years. And Qingyu pondered. Since the Daxia gods emerged until now, about a year has passed, which means there are still at least 6 months left? That's right. Yi Fan nodded. After the emergence of the Daxia gods shocked other divine realms, we speculate that other divine realms will inevitably feel wary and secretly contact various divine realms to try to unite against Daxia. However, this process involves various interests and cannot be completed in a short time. Therefore, wanting to repair the heavenly court is the best opportunity. If we miss this chance, it will be very difficult to find such a long time to repair the heavenly court in peace. However, it seems that someone among the various divine realms has noticed our plans and has begun their probing. Bai Li Pangpang suddenly understood. So, these two divine altars are their means of probing? Exactly. Yi Fan spoke seriously. The fact that the Daxia gods cannot take action is a top national secret. Besides the human elite and a few high-ranking night watchmen, no one else knows. If it weren't for you already being involved and being the seeds of the 5th Special Team, I wouldn't have revealed this matter to you. So, don't worry, we absolutely won't let it slip. Lin Chia replied earnestly. The others nodded in agreement. Is there anything we can help with? Lin Chia asked. Yifan shook his head. This matter involves foreign gods and is not something at your level can handle. Zhou Ping, I will take him away. You just need to continue with your training. Here, I can give you a promise. Lin Chia and the others looked at Yifan with some confusion. As long as you defeat teams 007 and 006 and complete this comprehensive training, your temporarily revoked qualification to become the 5th Special Team will be restored. Once you meet the requirements I mentioned before, you will officially become the 5th Special Team. Upon hearing this, Bai Li Pongpong's eyes lit up, his expression very excited. The others exchanged silent glances. Oh. Yifan. Why does it seem like everyone except that little fatty doesn't care much? Zhou Ping seemed to think of something and took out a wooden chopstick from his pocket, handing it to Lin Chia. Inside this contains a trace of my sword intent. If you encounter any troublesome enemies, you can use it. Lin Chia was taken aback, accepting the chopstick. Thank you, Sword Saint. He solemnly stored the chopstick close to him. Train well. Yifan glared at them, then turned and quickly walked back to the helicopter. Zhou Ping, carrying the sword case, followed closely behind. After taking a few steps, he stopped again, turned back to look at Lin Chia and the others, and after holding it in for a while, finally spoke softly. Good luck. Thank you, Sword Saint. The 5 of them bowed deeply in unison, shouting in perfect harmony. This sudden shout startled Yifan, who was walking ahead. He turned back with a strange expression, glanced at the 5 of them, muttered something, and then silently continued walking forward. As the wind from the rotor blades swept through, the armed helicopter slowly ascended with a buzzing sound, quickly disappearing into the horizon. In front of the safe house, Lin Chia and the others gazed at the direction in which the black figure had departed, letting out a long sigh. The road ahead can only be walked by us, Lin Chia smiled bitterly. I thought he wouldn't say goodbye to us, Bai Li Pang chuckled. I didn't expect the Sword Saint to care about us. Social anxiety doesn't mean he's heartless. Lin Chia looked up at the sky. He just doesn't like to express it. Chapter 510 New Members. ZZZZ. Welcome to today's legal program. Today's theme is C. High-end ingredients often require only the simplest cooking methods. As usual, Uncle San got up early to start his busy day. Ghost Jiang Er sat at the laboratory workbench, hugging her knees, absent-mindedly adjusting the radio frequency. Creak. The laboratory door opened and Qingyu walked in. He was slightly taken aback when he saw Jiang Er sitting at the workbench, looking dejected. What's wrong with you? Jiang Er looked up at Qingyu, her lips pressed together. After hesitating for a moment, the radio beside her fell into sudden silence. Are you leaving Lintang? Qingyu nodded. Yeah, we're leaving tomorrow morning. Jiang Er shifted her gaze away from Qingyu, lowering her head to bury her face in her arms, and spoke softly. So, what do you plan to do with me? Qingyu was momentarily taken aback by the question, then fell into thought. Jiang Er couldn't leave the vicinity of her own corpse by more than a kilometer, and since she was a magnetic field herself, she couldn't move the coffin at all. This meant her freedom was entirely bound by this coffin. Wherever the coffin was, she could only be there. If the coffin were buried underground, Jiang Er would be confined to the cemetery for a long time, like a true ghost. If they just left the coffin here, Jiang Er wouldn't be able to stray too far from this place either. Not to mention living a normal life like a human. If her existence were discovered, this place would be considered a haunted house. If some reckless person came here to explore or stream live, it would be a real mess. It seemed that Jiang Er's corpse was inappropriate no matter where it was placed. As Jiang Er had said before, she was like an eternal prisoner now, unable to leave, unable to communicate, unable to integrate into society. Once they left, Jiang Er would truly become a wandering spirit. Perhaps her only source of entertainment would be listening to the radio or watching television. Watching television alone in a place like this for decades. Even if Jiang Er wasn't a ghost, she would probably turn into a real ghost by then. After pondering for a long time, and Qingyu seemed to have thought of something and looked at Jiang Er. Why don't you join our team? Jiang Er was taken aback by this suggestion and looked up at Qingyu. Since you don't want to stay here alone, maybe joining us is your only way out, Qingyu said seriously. Once you become part of the special team, you won't be stuck in one place anymore. You'll be traveling the world with us. Although it's dangerous, it's better than being a prisoner. Jiang Er was stunned for a moment and instinctively asked, "But I can't stray too far from this coffin. Are you saying you'll have to carry my coffin every time you go on a mission?" "It's just a coffin, we can carry it. Didn't you and we work well together this time?" Jiang Er hesitated for a moment, her expression somewhat forlorn. I'm just a corpse." "What's wrong with being a corpse?" And Qingyu smiled and said, "There's no rule that says a corpse can't be a member of the special team. Bringing a corpse to the battlefield is unlucky," Jiang Er said, lowering her head and speaking softly. And Qingyu looked at her for a moment, smiling as he adjusted his glasses. "Jiang Er. My favorite thing is corpses," and Qingyu said earnestly. "If anyone says you're unlucky, I'll be angry." Jiang Er stood frozen in place. She looked up into Qingyu's eyes. Even with the lenses obscuring them, those pure and bright eyes still sparkled like stars. He was serious. Jiang Er and Qingyu stared at each other for a long time before she snapped back to reality, nervously turning her head away and stammering. "But Senior Lin Chia might not agree." And Qingyu smiled and turned to walk out the door. "Wait for me a moment." Living room. Jiang Er. Lin Chia looked at Qingyu in surprise. "Does she want to come with us?" And Qingyu nodded. "Yeah." "What?" Bai Li Pang rushed over, excitedly saying, "Sister Jiang Er wants to join us? Then we'll have a full team. We can trick Brother Zhua over later and we'll be a 7-member team." "If Jiang Er is willing to join, that's definitely a good thing," Lin Chia nodded. "She's exceptionally talented, and being in the sea realm, plus the mysterious spirit communication field, she fully qualifies to join the special team." After saying that, Lin Chia turned to Jialan. "Jialan, what do you think?" Jialan blinked, first sizing up Qingyu for a moment, then turning to look at the laboratory where Jiang Er was, seemingly deep in thought. It was unclear what she had thought of, but her eyes quickly lit up. "I agree." Jialan raised her hands in approval, excitedly saying, "This pairing is so good." "Lin Chia? Old Chow." Lin Chia looked toward a distance. Chow Yuan, who was meditating on the sofa, slightly opened his eyes. "Of course, I have no objections. Having a junior in the team is a good thing." "Since that's the case, then it's unanimously approved," Lin Chia concluded. 2 minutes later. Lin Chia laid out the written application on the table, while Jiang Er floated behind him, curiously looking at the document. "All right, I've written the application for you. Next, all that's left is to sign." Lin Chia glanced at Jiang Er in her ghostly state, feeling a bit of a headache. In her ghostly state, Jiang Er couldn't affect physical objects at all, let alone sign her name. But signing was something that couldn't be done by anyone else, especially for formal documents related to the special team. And Qingyu pondered for a moment. "Can we use a fingerprint?" "That should work." And Qingyu nodded and took the application into the laboratory. A few minutes later he came out with the application bearing the fingerprint. "Done." And Qingyu handed the application to Lin Chia. "I melted a bit of ice and used her finger to press the fingerprint." Lin Chia glanced at the application, confirmed it was correct, then looked up at Jiang Er standing in front of him, a slight smile on his lips. "Welcome to the team, Jiang Er." Jiang Er lightly bit her lip, her eyes filled with emotion. She deeply bowed to Lin Chia and the others in the living room. "Thank you, seniors. I promise I won't cause you any trouble." Bai Li Pang walked over to her side, pretending to pat her shoulder, and said with a smile, "From now on, your brother Pang will protect you." Jialan looked at her, then at Qingyu behind her, her smile growing brighter. "Now, have we reached the required number for formalization?" Jialan seemed to have thought of something. "Yeah," Lin Chia nodded. "But we still need one more person." Chapter 511, Return to the Team. The pale golden morning sun streamed through the glass window, casting a golden halo over the pristine white tiles of the hospital room. On the bed in the center of the room, the ninth seat's eyelashes fluttered slightly as he slowly opened his eyes. He stared at the ceiling for a few seconds before turning his head to the side. There by the window, a figure was silently gazing outside, their shadow stretching long on the floor. The ninth seat sighed deeply. "Why are you still here?" By the window, Shin Qingzhu turned his head, thought for a moment and replied, "Oh, I came back to reimburse you for the medical expenses." The ninth seat glanced at the exquisite fruit basket on the bedside. "Do you need to bring a gift to reimburse medical expenses? The supermarket downstairs is having a sale, so I picked up a few things." "How much of a discount?" 99%. The corner of the ninth seat's mouth twitched slightly. "Yi is dead and the believers are gone. You've regained your freedom. Why are you still here with me instead of catching up with your brothers?" The ninth seat spoke helplessly. Shin Qingzhu glanced at him. "I'm afraid you might die." The ninth seat couldn't help but say, "If I could move right now, I would definitely go down and beat you up." "I'm serious." Shin Qingzhu turned to look at the sunlight outside the window, speaking calmly. "What I hate the most is seeing important people sacrifice themselves." He seemed to recall something and his eyes dimmed a bit. The ninth seat was taken aback. "So, am I an important person to you?" Shin Qingzhu's mouth twitched and he silently turned away. "I never said that." The ninth seat stared at him for a moment, then smiled. "You on the surface seem like a tough character, but inside you're softer than anyone else. That night when you came back from the nightclub, you hesitated for a long time but still didn't kill me. I could tell back then. You can't be a villain." Shin Qingzhu looked at him in surprise. "You weren't drunk then? As an undercover agent, how could I easily lose consciousness?" Shin Qingzhu turned his head and scoffed. "Zhuai Gu." A familiar voice shouted from downstairs in the hospital. Shin Qingzhu was taken aback and looked down. He saw 5 people carrying a coffin standing in the pale golden morning sun outside the inpatient department, smiling as they looked up at him. Bailey Pang Pang took a deep breath and shouted loudly again, "Let's go." Shin Qingzhu froze in place. On the hospital bed, the ninth seat chuckled. "Your brothers have come to find you." Shin Qingzhu turned back to look at the ninth seat, opened his mouth as if to say something, but ultimately said nothing. "What are you looking at me for? They're not calling for me." The ninth seat spoke helplessly. "Zhuai Gu." Bailey Pong Pong's voice rang out again. Soon the noise downstairs became chaotic. "No. Security, we really didn't mean to disturb the hospital environment. 500 is 500 enough? 1,000. I'll give you 1,000 each." Bailey Pang Pang spoke weakly. "Yeah, security, we just want one person to come down." This was Chow Yuan. "We won't shout anymore, we really won't shout. We'll just wait here." "No, don't take action." This was Lin Chia. "I'll see who dares to touch him." Jialan started rolling up his sleeves. "Please do not touch this coffin. We are not here to cause trouble." And Qingyu's voice was very serious. Shin Qingzhu watched as Lin Chia and the others were being driven out by a group of security guards downstairs, and the corner of his mouth couldn't help but rise. "Your mission is complete. It's time to return to the sunlight." The ninth seat smiled and said, "If fate allows, we'll meet again." Shin Qingzhu looked into his eyes and after a long while he slowly spoke. "Take care." He pushed the door open and walked out quickly. "Hey." The ninth seat seemed to remember something. "I haven't reimbursed you yet. I forgot to bring the receipt this time. Let's do it next time." Shin Qingzhu smiled. Lin Chia and the others stood outside the hospital entrance, feeling dejected as they glanced at the time. In the end, they were still driven out by the hospital's security. "Chia Zhuaigu won't not come, right?" Bailey Pang Pang asked with some concern. "He shouldn't." Lin Chia pondered. "The believers have been wiped out. He has no reason not to meet us. What if he doesn't want to be a night watchman anymore?" Chow Yuan frowned slightly. Upon hearing this, Lin Chia and the others fell silent. Formally speaking, Shin Qingzhu had already died 2 years ago, not only in the night watchman's records but also in the memories of others in this world, which forever remained in the cave beneath Jinan Mountain. If his goal was merely revenge, then after killing all the believers, he had already achieved it. It seemed he had no reason to return to the night watchman's life and death struggle. Finding a quiet little city, getting married and having children, living out the rest of his life without the need to live in fear. This was the ending many night watchmen dreamed of. Let's wait 10 more minutes. Lin Chia glanced at the time. If he hasn't come down in 10 minutes, we should leave. The atmosphere suddenly fell silent. Time passed second by second, and Bailey Pang Pang and Chow Yuan kept checking the time, their gazes scanning the dense crowd at the hospital entrance, hoping to find that figure. However, that figure still did not appear. When the second hand passed a certain mark, Lin Chia sighed deeply and shook his head. He's not coming. Let's go. Chow Yuan and Bailey Pang Pang exchanged glances, seeing the disappointment in each other's eyes. After pausing for a moment, they stepped forward, following Lin Chia down the road. Everyone has their own choices. Since Shin Qingzhu chose this path, they could only wish him well. However, just after taking 2 steps, Lin Chia, who was at the front, suddenly stopped. Bailey Pang Pang looked up in confusion, about to say something, when his gaze caught sight of a figure by the street and he froze in place. Outside a convenience store, a young man was leaning against the wall, holding a cigarette, gently exhaling a puff of smoke. His peripheral vision caught sight of a few people not far away and he raised an eyebrow. Why are you so slow? Shui gu. Bailey Pong Pong's mouth dropped open. What are you doing here? Weren't you the ones who told me to come down? But, why is it so crowded at the entrance? Oh, the main entrance was too crowded, so I took the side door. Shin Qingzhu pointed to the convenience store behind him. And I was afraid I wouldn't have a place to buy cigarettes later, so I came to buy a pack first. The corner of Lin Chia's mouth couldn't help but rise. Shin Qingzhu lightly flicked his fingers, extinguished the burning cigarette butt, and tossed it into a nearby trash can before leisurely walking up to Lin Chia. Lin Chia? No, now I should call you Captain Lin. Shin Qingzhu smiled and said. Night Watchman Shin Qingzhu applying to return to the team. Chapter 512. The Pursuit of the Sword Saint. The northern border of the Great Xia. A plane streaked across the sky. Inside the cabin, Zhou Ping looked through the window and his eyes suddenly narrowed. What is going on? Looking down from the high altitude, he saw a vast expanse of land, where a straight black line sliced through half of a city. Numerous streets and buildings were severed by this black line, the edges remarkably smooth. To the left of the black line was the intact half of the city, while to the right, it was desolate. No buildings, no streets, no land, no life. The ground had uniformly sunk nearly 100 meters, as if a gigantic shovel had scooped this half of the city from the earth, leaving no trace behind. The vanished half of the city extended all the way to the rolling misty border. What happened to that half of the city? Zhou Ping turned to Yi Fan. Yi Fan gazed at the land below and slowly spoke. After the wind god descended, he excavated the half of the city closest to the misty border, taking with it over 10,000 residents, along with mountains, forests, rivers, and the very essence of Fengdu, all into the mist. He took half the city away? Zhou Ping exclaimed in shock. Why would he do that? I don't know. Yi Fan shook his head. This happened 2 minutes ago. I just received the news. The plane began to descend slowly, and before it could come to a complete stop, Zhou Ping and Yi Fan jumped out, landing at the edge of the remaining half of the city. It was a wide asphalt street, but the road abruptly ended less than 10 meters ahead, the black line cutting it off, and what lay beyond was a sheer cliff. Below the cliff was a vast flat expanse of land. The residents of the remaining half of the city have already been evacuated. Yi Fan frowned as he looked at the vanished half of the city and continued. Anta County itself has a harsh environment, and being close to the misty border, the population is not large. When the wind god descended, a violent wind swept through the entire city, knocking everyone unconscious. What about the night watchmen stationed here? They disappeared along with that half of the city. Zhou Ping crouched down, running his fingers along the edge of the cliff. The cut was remarkably neat, as if a knife had sliced through the land, severing half the city. Cough, cough, cough. Just as he was about to say something, he lowered his head and covered his mouth, coughing softly. Are you feeling unwell? Yi Fan asked, frowning. No, just a couple of coughs. Zhou Ping waved his hand and continued. What about the Emperor of Fengdu? Before the heavenly court is restored, the great Tao is incomplete, and the gods of Great Xia cannot leave its borders. Therefore, the Emperor of Fengdu cannot intervene and can only rely on his connection with Fengdu to barely protect the city's residents from being corroded to death by the mist. So, we can only rely on ourselves now. Yes. Yi Fan's expression was somewhat grave. Aside from Guanzai, who is still in seclusion, I've already sent Lu Wuwei and Qin Fuzi here. They should arrive soon. I'll go. Zhou Ping suddenly spoke up. Yi Fan was taken aback. The gods of Great Xia cannot intervene, so someone must guard the borders and pursue those from the half-city. The more people who chase after it, the weaker Great Xia's defenses will become. Perhaps that's exactly what they want, Zhou Ping said calmly. Fuzi is skilled in defense and must remain in Great Xia. You as the commander of the Night Watchmen cannot go either. As for Lu Wei, his speed is too slow. You're going alone? Yi Fan frowned. Do you know where that city's final destination is? As one of the 9 pillars of Egypt, his target is, of course, the divine kingdom of Egypt, the temple of the gods. You're going to storm the divine kingdom of Egypt alone? The distance between Great Xia and Egypt is not short. Even the wind god, carrying such a large fragment of land, wouldn't reach it in a short time. Zhou Ping said seriously, as long as I intercept this fragment on the way, it won't enter the range of the divine kingdom of Egypt. Perhaps it's not that simple. Yi Fan shook his head. The situation beyond the mist has already exceeded our control. We have no idea what those outer gods are plotting. Perhaps not far outside Great Xia's borders, a group of outer gods is lying in wait for you. This itself is a trap. If it's a trap, then the fewer people who step into it, the better. Yi Fan fell silent. Zhou Ping looked into Yi Fan's eyes. That fragment holds over 10,000 lives. No matter what, we cannot just watch them die. Since someone has to pursue it, I am the best candidate. Only I can take it back from the wind god. The one who goes must be me. And it can only be me because during this time no other top-tier beings can leave Great Xia. You specifically flew here to pick me up instead of going for Qin Fuzi or Lu Wei because you already thought of this, didn't you? You chose me from the very beginning. Yi Fan stared into Zhou Ping's eyes, falling into silence. Yes. Yi Fan slowly spoke. This is something only you can do. Actually, you don't need to be so indirect. Zhou Ping sighed. If you could be a bit more straightforward, perhaps we could really become good friends. Just like I am with Guanzai. I'm sorry. But you're different from us. You are the commander of the Night Watchmen, bearing too much responsibility. So I can understand. Zhou Ping, with his sword box on his back, said calmly. But next time I hope you can directly tell me where to go and who to kill. The responsibilities I should bear I will not evade. After all, I am the sword saint of Great Xia. Yi Fan stared blankly at Zhou Ping. You? Zhou Ping's eyes showed a hint of confusion. What's wrong? It seems that during this time, you've gotten along quite well with Lin Qier and the others. Yi Fan's lips curled slightly. In the past you wouldn't have spoken to me like this, let alone say so much in one breath, and you rarely looked down at your own toes. Zhou Ping was taken aback, pondering in silence for a long time before nodding slightly. Perhaps. Before we set off, do you have anything else to say? Yi Fan asked. Zhou Ping hesitated for a moment, took out 2 envelopes from his pocket, and handed them to Yi Fan. Please deliver these 2 letters to Teams 007 and 006. Yi Fan glanced at the envelopes and smiled wryly. Actually, you could have just told me. Zhou Ping shook his head. I hope I can accompany them to the end of this training, even if it's in this form. I understand. And, Zhou Ping hesitated for a moment, if I don't come back, don't tell my third uncle. Just say, I went out to work. Yi Fan fell silent. After a long while he slowly spoke, all right. And I think you shouldn't say any more. Yi Fan said seriously, your tone now sounds like you're making final arrangements. It's not good to say such things too often. Zhou Ping paused. Tell Lin Qier that his tomato stir-fry is actually quite average, far from what my third uncle makes. Yi Fan. I'm off. Zhou Ping turned around and lightly patted the sword box. Ding. The clear sound of the sword echoed in the air, and a flash of sword light instantly pierced through the misty border, disappearing without a trace. Yi Fan stood alone in place, gazing at the direction where the sword light had vanished, lingering for a long time. Chapter 513. An unexpected new caregiver. Good morning, Director. Morning, Aju. Morning, Chi-yi. Li Yifei, has anything happened in the hospital recently? No, everything is fine. Good morning, Director. Morning, Hong Yen. Good morning, Patrick Starr. Good morning. Huh? Wearing a white lab coat, Lin Chi-yi leisurely strolled down the corridor when he suddenly turned around. In the courtyard, a pug was lying there looking up at Lin Chi-yi, panting with its tongue out. Lin Chi-yi suspiciously turned around and picked it up from the ground. What did you just say? Good morning, Patrick Starr. The pug grinned. Are there delicious crab roe buns tonight? Lin Chi-yi. Lin Chi-yi grabbed the pug by its hind legs, turned it upside down, and began to shake it like a spin dryer. Belle Crandall, come out. Patrick, ugh. The pug opened its mouth and spat out a small golden bug, which fell limply to the ground, surrounded by some stomach fluid as if it were dead. Lin Chi-yi raised an eyebrow, set the pug aside, and after a moment of hesitation muttered, Spring tides bring rain, hastening the evening. A handful of clear water appeared from thin air and poured over the golden bug, which finally moved its body after being splashed. Belle Crandall wobbled to its feet, and upon seeing Lin Chi-yi, it trembled uncontrollably. I forgot you can't speak. Lin Chi-yi waved to the pug, which immediately ran over, panting. Seeing the pug, the golden bug instinctively took a few steps back as if it were very afraid of it. Lin Chi-yi's eyes showed a hint of confusion. Are you afraid of it? The golden bug nodded slightly. Lin Chi-yi pondered for a moment and said to the pug, Don't resist, let it control your body. You can't swallow it, understand? The pug nodded. Okay, I won't swallow the boss. Lin Chi-yi. The golden bug tentatively flew to the pug's tongue, using mental pollution to control the pug's body, its eyes showing a hint of purple. Tell me what's going on? Lin Chi-yi asked. The pug's face immediately fell. This dog doesn't know what happened either. Yesterday afternoon its power suddenly surged and its intelligence increased significantly, breaking through my control and even backfiring on me. And then you were swallowed by it? Lin Chi-yi asked in confusion. With your strength it shouldn't be hard to fly out, right? No. This dog's power is too strange. I flew for a long time but still couldn't escape from its belly. Then my mental energy was exhausted. Its power. Lin Chi-yi raised an eyebrow. What kind of power does it have? I'll show you. As soon as the words left its mouth, the pug suddenly stood up from the ground like a person, then flashed a charming smile. With a flick of its front leg, a black tailcoat draped over its body. Lin Chi-yi. What the hell, why does this skill look so familiar? The pug flicked its front leg again, and the surrounding environment instantly changed from a clean corridor to a refined and elegant Western restaurant. Bright candle flames flickered on the long Western dining table, and the melodious sound of a violin echoed in the air. Lin Chi-yi sat dazed at one side of the table, facing a pug with a snow-white napkin around its neck, a knife in its left paw, a fork in its right paw, and a smile on its face. As the pug's knife and fork clinked together, something indescribable and foul-smelling appeared simultaneously on the plates in front of them. One person and one dog. Lin Chi-yi's body shook. Stop. Stop it now. Lin Chi-yi instantly raised his hand, rewriting the rules of the hospital and shattering the illusory scene. He stood in the corridor with a grim expression, looking down at the pug, his expression incredibly complex. A true nightmare. The murmuring dream fork. How could it be on it? Lin Chi-yi muttered to himself. Suddenly Lin Chi-yi seemed to think of something. This pug was created from a fragment of the soul that Merlin used to break into the hospital 2 years ago. In a sense, this dog is part of the murmuring soul. Yesterday Shin Qingzhu extinguished the murmuring soul with the soul-severing blade, and the pug's own soul was extinguished as well. But the problem is, at that time, the murmuring still had 2 souls from another world within it. After the murmuring soul was extinguished, the 2 otherworldly souls lost their suppression and gained control of the body, thus obtaining the dream fork's divine ruins. Then Shin Qingzhu burned the murmuring's corpse, and those 2 otherworldly souls descended onto this pug's fragment through the connection between the main body and the fragment. In other words, this dog is no longer an ordinary dog but one that has inherited the divine ruins of the murmuring and the strength of the Klein realm, a dog. No wonder Belle Crandall was swallowed by it and couldn't escape. After figuring all this out, Lin Chiye's gaze toward the pug became complicated. I didn't expect the first Klein realm caretaker in the hospital to appear in this form. Wait, this dog doesn't seem to be his caretaker, right? Lin Chiye's eyes suddenly lit up. Not a caretaker, can I sign on the spot? I just don't know if this dog wasn't released from the cell, whether the hospital's contract would be effective. Lin Chiyi reached out and summoned an ancient contract which appeared in his hand. The employer section still had Lin Chiye's name, while the caretaker's name was listed as unknown existence. The God's Hospital couldn't identify this dog's existence. It was itself a blend of many strange factors, making it the most miraculous species in this hospital. Lin Chiyi pushed the contract in front of the pug, which tilted its head, seemingly unable to understand what it was, and then began to lick Lin Chiye's toes. Lin Chiyi recalled a certain scene from earlier, silently pulled his foot away, and then directly lifted its front paw, pressing it onto the contract. After pressing it down, Lin Chiyi winked at the confused pug. Look, you pressed it yourself, it has nothing to do with me. You are willing. The contract instantly burned to ashes, and a mysterious law descended upon the pug, shackling its soul. Then a fitted blue caretaker uniform was put on it. A nameplate shone brightly on its chest. 006. Chapter 514. Lin Chia's treatment plan. From now on you are the new caretaker. Lin Chia patted the head of the pug. Make sure to get along well with the young master and don't swallow it whole. After saying that, Lin Chia stood up contentedly and walked towards the second floor. Bail Clan looked at the pug in a tailcoat, with a wicked smile at the corner of its mouth, and fell into silence. Boss Pie, the pug smiled slightly. Shall we go catch some jellyfish? Without waiting for Bail Clan to refuse, it bit him and scampered off towards the bathroom. Lin Chia stood in front of the door to the fourth patient room, holding a pot of rice wine. After hesitating for a long time, he gently knocked on the door and then pushed it open to enter. In the empty patient room, the ancient ape draped in a cassock sat quietly like a stone statue, with its eyes lowered, a faint Buddhist light shimmering around it, as if it hadn't noticed Lin Chia entering, remaining completely still. Lin Chia walked to sit directly opposite it, crossing his legs. He placed two small bowls on the ground with his left hand, opened the rice wine bottle and began pouring. The conditions in the hospital are limited, so they can only brew this ordinary rice wine, but it tastes pretty good. Lin Chia offered one of the wine bowls to Sun Wukong, who remained as still as a stone sculpture, with his hands pressed together, showing no intention of accepting the bowl. Lin Chia was not surprised by this. He naturally placed the wine bowl on the ground in front of the ancient ape and lifted his own to take a sip. If you don't want me to call you the Great Sage, what should I call you? Lin Chia muttered to himself. Fighting Saint Buddha? Sun Wukong. Monkey King. By Ma, forget it. Monkey Brother? Upon hearing the last two words, the solid figure trembled imperceptibly, and the surrounding Buddhist light rippled. A glimmer flashed in Lin Chia's eyes. Well then, I'll call you Monkey Brother. Lin Chia slowly set down the wine bowl. Monkey Brother, do you know how popular you are among us in the Great Xia? Walking down the street, there's hardly anyone who doesn't recognize you. Even children who haven't fully learned to read can recite your stories bit by bit using pinyin. You are a true national idol. Lin Chia raised his wine bowl and took a big sip, continuing. I never expected that one day I would have the chance to sit in front of you and drink. Even if it's just a monologue. Since you don't want to talk to me, I'll have to say a bit more. How about this? I'll tell you the stories that are passed down about you in our Great Xia. If anything differs from the facts, just interrupt me or give me a signal. Seeing that the ancient ape still showed no intention of responding, Lin Chia continued to talk to himself. Once upon a time in the East Victory Divine Continent in the Aolai Kingdom on Huagua Mountain, there was a giant rock. Telling his story in front of the great sage was not a spur-of-the-moment decision, but rather the best plan Lin Chia had come up with after careful consideration. From that phrase, "Don't call me the great sage," Lin Chia could initially infer that his illness was related to those two words. To investigate where the problem lay, it was unrealistic to rely on the great sage to speak about it himself. Therefore, Lin Chia could only cast a wide net, recounting the entire journey to the west, and deducing the issue based on his reactions. In simple terms, Lin Chia was trying to find the great sage's pain point through this method. Before coming to drink and chat with the great sage, Lin Chia had taken the time to repeatedly review Journey to the West, breaking down the relevant details and committing them to memory, which led to the current scene. This was destined to be a long and tedious process, but in a sense, it was the most effective solution. The pot of rice wine gradually ran low. Lin Chia took the last sip, licking his cracked lips, his throat feeling a bit hoarse. He had been telling stories for nearly 2 hours, and the entire pot of rice wine had been consumed by him alone. During this time, the great sage remained completely still, as if he had truly transformed into a statue transcending the world. Lin Chia glanced at the time and slowly stood up from the ground. He picked up the 2 wine bowls and the empty wine pot, letting out a long sigh. "Monkey brother, it's about time for today. I'll come back tomorrow to drink with you." He waved his hand and stepped out of the patient room, remembering to close the door behind him, his footsteps gradually fading away in the corridor. After an unknown amount of time, in the patient room, the ancient ape slowly opened its lowered eyelids. 1. 4 tiles. Peng. Who? Shin Qingzhu played a tile, pushing the mahjong in front of her down, her gaze sweeping over the table at Bailey Pang Pang, Chao Yuan and Jialon, her eyes filled with mockery. That expression seemed to say, "Is that all you've got?" Bailey Pang Pang's mouth twitched slightly. I'm done. You guys are cheating." Bailey Pang Pang exclaimed angrily, "It's been the whole morning and I haven't won a single round. Even Sister Jialon has won one." Jialon's expression turned unfriendly. "What did you say?" Nothing." Bailey Pang Pang quickly backed down. "Let Chia or Xiaoyer play with you. I've lost enough." Chao Yuan glanced at Lin Chia, who was dozing off in a chair, and in Qingyu, who was sitting on a coffin staring out the window in a daze, and said softly, "Cheaters are banned from participating." "What about Sister Jiang Er?" Bailey Pang Pang turned to look at Jiang Er, who was sitting on a small stool watching the tiles. "I can't draw any tiles." Jiang Er's helpless voice came from the airplane's intercom. Bailey Pang Pang sighed helplessly and sat back down at the mahjong table to shuffle the tiles again. "Let's play 2 more rounds. We'll be at Huaihai soon." Chao Yuan glanced at the flight route and said, "Huaihai? I didn't expect we'd be back so soon." Bailey Pang Pang looked around the cabin, feeling a bit emotional. "When we left, there were still 5 of us, and now we've turned into 7. You forgot about Sword Saint," Jialon reminded. "He's the team leader." Bailey Pang Pang paused, "But it feels like something is missing without Sword Saint here." "Missing his kidnapper-style remarks," Chao Yuan added. "It's actually quite interesting." "Yeah. I wonder if when we find the 007 team, they will acknowledge it." As the group chatted, the plane slowly descended onto the tarmac. A person and a coffin walked off the plane, getting into the car that Bailey Pang Pang had arranged, heading straight towards the 007 Night Watch team stationed in Huaihai City. The 007 team has a total of members, with the captain being of the Klein realm, the vice-captain of the Wolyang realm, and the other members are all of the Sea realm. Lin Chia analyzed the situation regarding this challenge based on the information. In the best-case scenario, the captain of the Klein realm doesn't intervene, and the others engage us in a 7-on-7 battle. If that captain joins the fight, our chances of winning will be very slim. Chapter 515. The Letter of the Sword Saint. So how to convince them to fight us fairly is also a problem, Bailey Pang Pang pondered. "How did you do it before?" Shin Qingzhu asked. Lin Chia and the others exchanged glances. "Kidnapping." Shin Qingzhu fell silent for a moment. "Actually, what's the harm in kidnapping them again?" "It's best not to," Chao Yuan said softly. "It's really not that complicated. As long as I make an appearance, they will believe us." Bailey Pang Pang seemed to have thought of something and suddenly realized, "I almost forgot, old Chao, you were a member of the 007 team before. You can prove our identity." Chao Yuan nodded. "Captain Guang is a reasonable person. This battle with the 007 team should go smoothly." As they spoke, the vehicle slowly came to a stop. Lin Chia and the others got out of the car and were suddenly stunned by the sight before them. The base of the 007 team was in an old, standalone office building on the edge of the city. From the outside it looked quite dilapidated, but inside, all 5 floors were their office space. At this moment, in the most prominent position on the 2nd floor, a brand new banner was hanging. warmly welcoming team members to come for a spar. Clap. Two crisp sounds rang out, and from the third-floor windows, two colorful streamers burst open, showering colorful paper strips from the sky, landing at Lin Chia and the others' feet. Beneath them was a bright and solemn red carpet. Lin Chia and the others stared at this unbelievable scene, collectively frozen in place. What's going on? Bai Li Pang Pang asked in confusion. Team members. Is that a leader's name? I think it's referring to us. And Qingyu adjusted her glasses. Old Chow. Your influence is really big. Bai Li Pang Pang excitedly patted Chow Yuan on the shoulder. They even arranged a red carpet. Chow Yuan looked at everything in front of him with suspicion, his expression somewhat strange. It shouldn't be like this. Just as Lin Chia was about to speak, a synchronized applause came from ahead. Several figures quickly walked out of the building, beaming smiles as they approached Lin Chia and the others. Hello, I am Guang Qingxing, the captain of the 007 team stationed in Huaihai City. The leading young man shook hands with Lin Chia and the others one by one. You must be the students of the Sword Saint, right? Lin Chia and the others exchanged surprised glances. Yes. Captain Guang. Chow Yuan smiled politely. Guang Qingxing looked at Chow Yuan, surprise flashing across his face. Chow Yuan? You're here too. Then, as if he thought of something, he said, Oh, so the other team you mentioned being transferred to is this reserve team. Not bad, you've made progress. Chow Yuan's mouth twitched slightly. So, these arrangements really had nothing to do with him. We've been waiting for a long time. Please come inside. The sparring venue has been arranged. Would you like to rest for a while before starting, or shall we begin right away? Guang Qingxing asked politely. Let's wait a moment first. Lin Chia asked suspiciously, How did you know we were coming? Oh, yesterday afternoon we received a letter from the Sword Saint that Commander Yi personally delivered. He said you would come to challenge us today and asked us to treat you well. A letter from the Sword Saint? Lin Chia was taken aback. Can we take a look at it? Guang Qingxing hesitated. You can, but never mind, please sit inside first. I'll go get the letter for you. Lin Chia and the others followed Guang Qingxing, walking the red carpet into the office building, and were led to the reception room to sit down. This office building was clearly a product of a bygone era, with relatively old furnishings, but every corner was cleaned spotless, making it quite pleasant to look at. So many files. Shin Qingzhu walked over to a nearby bookshelf, her gaze sweeping over the densely packed documents, murmuring to herself. Huaihai City has a large population and the mysterious occurrences are quite frequent. These are just the files from the past 2 years. The rest on the 3rd and 4th floors are all storage for files, Chow Yuan explained. So many. Then the 007 team must be very busy. Bai Li Pang Pang exclaimed. Yeah, Chow Yuan sighed. When I was still in the 007 team, it was either hunting down the mysterious or on the way to hunt them down. The workload of the 007 team was heavy. There was simply no time to organize team-building activities, let alone develop side businesses. It seems the 007 team is quite powerful, Lin Chia said thoughtfully. I'm very strong. This is a team that excels in combat. Chow Yuan nodded seriously. Be careful during the challenge later. While they were chatting, Guang Qingxing had already brought the letter over. Lin Chia took the envelope, opened it and pulled out the letter, reading it aloud, his mouth twitching slightly. Foolish members of the 007 team. Tomorrow my students, who are the reserve team of the 5th Special Team, will come to Huaihai City to challenge you. Please prepare the venue in advance and send out 7 team members to fight them fairly. No one from the Klein realm is allowed to intervene. Do not attempt any tricks. Unless you want to be torn apart. I am not the Sword Saint. In this letter, the words torn apart and Sword Saint were deliberately bolded, the strokes sharp and filled with a terrifying sword intent, as if ready to leap off the paper and slice the reader's throat. It gave the impression that Zhou Ping was already holding a sword, expressionless, resting it against your neck, asking whether you wanted to live or die. Reading this letter instilled an inexplicable sense of life and death crisis. Lin Chia. This letter was personally delivered by Commander Yi? Lin Chia turned stiffly to look at Guang Qingxing beside him. Exactly. Guang Qingxing forced a smile. Senior Sword Saint, really loves to joke, huh? As he laughed, Guang Qingxing's smile began to fade. Lin Qia's mouth twitched. He could imagine Guang Qingxing's expression when he first saw this letter. It must have been quite something. The terrifying sword intent contained in the strokes, combined with the fact that it was personally delivered by Commander Yi. Who else could have written this letter besides the Sword Saint? If the Sword Saint said he would tear them apart, how could they dare to be the slightest bit negligent? The 007 team probably had nightmares last night. Senior Sword Saint really loves to joke. Lin Chia looked down at the letter in his hand, a slight smile appearing at the corners of his mouth. Chapter 516. Confrontation. Lin Chia put away the letter. Are we going to spar in this building? Lin Chia glanced around the environment and asked. A battle of 7 against 7, with participants mostly at the C level of strength. If they weren't careful, this old building could be reduced to rubble. If they really fought here, it wouldn't take a minute for the 007 team's base to collapse. No, we prepared an open space in the suburbs of Huaihai City, but it's a bit far. It will take about 2 hours to drive there, Guang Qingxing replied. Lin Chia nodded and looked at the clock on the wall. Then let's start early, otherwise if we delay your work it won't be good. Okay, I'll make some arrangements and head over with our team shortly. Guang Qingxing stepped outside and made 2 phone calls. 2 minutes later, a tourist bus stopped in front of the building. The bus has arrived, Captain Lin. Let's get on. Lin Chia responded with a sound of acknowledgement and led everyone downstairs. The members of the 007 team were already geared up and ready to go. Chao Yuan stepped forward to greet them, and both teams boarded the bus with their respective equipment. On the left side of the bus, all the seats were occupied by the 007 team members, while Lin Chia and his group sat on the right. In the aisle between them lay a cold black coffin, causing the eyes of the 007 team members to widen in shock. Vice Captain Han, why do I feel like the 5th Reserve Team is not here for friendly sparring? Isn't this supposed to be a practice? Why is there even a coffin prepared? Zhao Kun leaned closer to Vice Captain Han Qing and whispered. Han Qing shot him a glare. Stop talking nonsense. Zhao Kun shrugged silently and sat back down. Ahem, let me introduce myself. My name is Bailey Pang Pang. Today I'm meeting the heroes of the 007 team for the first time. I didn't bring any gifts, so I'll give each of you a Rolex instead. Just a small token of respect. Bailey Pang Pang stood up, pulled a Rolex out of his pocket and cheerfully walked over to the 007 team. During the sparring later, please go easy on each other. Friendship first, competition second. The 007 team. Several team members were left dumbfounded at the sight of the shiny Rolex in Bailey Pang Pang's hand. Meanwhile, Lin Chia facepalmed in exasperation. Here we go again. Bailey Pang Pang remained steady despite the swaying bus, approaching each team member with both hands extended, offering the Rolex with a beaming smile. Though he was bold enough to give, no one from the 007 team dared to accept. Comrade Bailey, Vice Captain Han Qing couldn't help but speak up. Isn't it a bit inappropriate to give gifts right now? We're about to fight and you're making the bribery this obvious. Bailey Pang Pang was taken aback, then dramatically slapped his thigh and said apologetically, I was being presumptuous, sorry Vice Captain Han. I just wanted to make friends with everyone, really no other intentions. How about this? After we finish fighting, regardless of the outcome, I'll make sure to give everyone a gift as a small gesture of goodwill. After saying this, Bailey Pang Pang cupped his hands and returned to his seat. Upon hearing this, the expressions of the 007 team members varied, but the hostility in their eyes towards Lin Chia and the others had diminished significantly. Lin Chia glanced at Bailey Pang Pang through the rearview mirror, his expression somewhat nuanced. This little fatty has grown quite a bit, hasn't he? Although he didn't manage to give the gifts, his light-hearted remark about gifting after the fight essentially set the tone for this confrontation. As the saying goes, you don't hit someone who's smiling at you. Since Bailey Pang Pang said he would give gifts regardless of the outcome, the 007 team would likely hold back, as a harsh fight would lead to an awkward situation afterward. This subtly weakened the combat effectiveness of the 007 team. This time, Bailey Pang Pang wasn't just giving gifts for the sake of it. He had elevated his game significantly. In other words, he had become more astute. The foolish son of a landlord was long gone. Ding ding ding. The urgent ringing of a phone sounded and Guang Qingxing sitting in the front answered it. Hello. What? Guang Qingxing's brow furrowed and a serious expression appeared in his eyes. Okay, I understand. After hanging up, he stood up from his seat, looking apologetically at Lin Chia and the others and said, I'm sorry, Captain Lin, but today's confrontation has to be temporarily cancelled. What happened? There's a suspected Wuliang-level mysterious entity that has appeared in the eastern district of Huaihai City. Our team must head over immediately, Guang Qingxing said solemnly. Lin Chia was taken aback, pondering for a moment before a smile crept onto his face. Captain Guang, I actually think it doesn't need to be so complicated. Lin Chia spoke slowly. Since it's a confrontation, there's no rule stating how we must determine the winner. Why don't we change the format of the confrontation? Guang Qingxing narrowed his eyes. You mean? We both set off from here at the same time, and whichever team kills that mysterious entity first wins. Lin Chia smiled slightly. This way we won't waste resources or time and it will help relieve some of your pressure. Guang Qingxing's eyes brightened gradually. After thinking for a moment he nodded. All right, if that's the case we'll do as you say. But I must remind you, if you lose this race, we won't give you another chance for confrontation. No problem. Then I'll briefly outline the known information. Everyone perked up their ears. Currently, due to the short time since the mysterious entity appeared and the few witnesses, we don't know much about it. We only know it has strong concealment and mobility, is humanoid, possesses high intelligence and always manages to evade all police deployments. Its aggressiveness is low and it was only sighted once at the Grand Theater in the Eastern District. Guang Qingxing scanned the people in the bus. That's all the known information. You can start your actions now. As soon as he finished speaking, the 7 members of the 007 team, without waiting for the vehicle to come to a complete stop, quickly opened the windows and jumped out, disappearing in the blink of an eye. In contrast, Lin Chia and the others, after witnessing the actions of the 007 team, showed no intention of jumping out and calmly exited the vehicle once it had stopped. Is it really okay for us to be this leisurely? Bailey Pang Pang couldn't help but ask. Lin Chia silently lowered his head, put on the Sun Wukong mask and pressed his hand in the air. A massive magic circle unfolded in the air. Immediately afterward, a gigantic flame-pulse earth dragon crawled in front of everyone. Lin Chia clapped his hands and said nonchalantly, "What's the rush? We have a dragon, do they?" Chapter 517. Red Eyes and Black Shadows. Why are they moving so fast? In the speeding 007 team, a girl wearing glasses exclaimed in shock. What's wrong, Xiaoyu? Vice Captain Han Qing asked. Due to regulations, the 007 team leader, Guang Qingxing, could not participate in this extermination mission, so Vice Captain Han Qing led the team to the East District. Qi Xiaoyu pressed her right index finger against her temple, her eyes tightly shut. They must be using some kind of transportation, ignoring the terrain, and have suddenly moved close to the East District. They're about to reach the theater. It should be one of their team members' abilities, Han Qing pondered. It's fine, let them have a little head start. Exactly, running a bit faster isn't a big deal. We have Xiaoyu's divine perception map. As long as that mysterious entity is still within the East District, we can instantly identify it and find it, Zhao Kun said with a smile. Vice Captain Han, do we really need to take this so seriously? Yang Letong hesitated to speak. Since this is the assessment for the 5th Reserve Team, wouldn't it be better to ease up a bit and let them pass smoothly? It would be a win-win situation. Other team members nodded in agreement. For them, this was just an ordinary extermination mission, but for the 5th Reserve Team, it was crucial for their official transition. If this team stumbled here, it would create significant issues. As long as they took a small step back, they could allow Daxia to have an additional special team while also building a good relationship with this special team. That would be the best outcome. Han Qing glanced at them. Do you think a team qualified to become the 5th special team needs us to ease up for them to pass the assessment? Yang Letong was taken aback. Since the higher-ups of the Night Watchmen have such high hopes for them, it means they must have exceptional qualities. This confrontation assessment isn't meant for us to obstruct their path to becoming a special team. Rather, it exists to gradually hone their brilliance through this process. We are merely the sharpening stone. Since we are the sharpening stone, we must fulfill our role. Only if we are strong enough can we sharpen a sharper blade. If we let them win too easily, they will only look down on us and think the 007 team is nothing special. What if we win, though? If this blade breaks the sharpening stone, it only shows that they are not yet qualified to become a special team, Han Qing replied calmly. East District. Century Grand Theater. This is the place where the Wuliang realm mystery was spotted? Bai Li Pangpang looked at the dilapidated theater in front of him, skeptical. This theater has been around for nearly 100 years. It was once the most prosperous place in Huaihai, but due to the diversification of modern entertainment and the opening of a more luxurious theater in the bustling area, it has fallen into disrepair. Even with scheduled performances, there are hardly any audience members, Chow Yuan explained. Old Chow, you know so much? I spent a year in Huaihai. I came here once when the tickets were discounted, Chow Yuan shrugged. Due to the sighting of the mystery, the entire theater had been sealed off by the police. Fortunately, Guang Qingxing had already coordinated with the police, allowing Lin Qie and the others to enter the theater smoothly. The interior of the theater looked even older than it appeared from the outside. Even though every corner was cleaned thoroughly, it still had a shabby feel, and the space was relatively cramped, with narrow distances between tables and chairs. Only a few booths on the second floor appeared more spacious. The place where that thing was spotted is right there. A police officer following Lin Qie pointed ahead. Lin Qie and the others looked in the direction he pointed, their eyes filled with surprise. The stage. Yeah. The officer nodded. For specifics, you can check the surveillance footage. He had someone bring in the theater's surveillance footage and set it up on a table in the audience area, starting the playback. The camera was positioned to the side of the stage, capturing the actors' faces and the first 2 rows of the audience. However, during the performance, the entire audience area was empty with no one present. But even without an audience, several actors on stage were diligently completing their performance. Suddenly, in a corner of the stage, a mass of black liquid seemed to flow out of thin air, running down a pillar and pooling on the floor, forming a shadowy figure. Faintly, the surveillance footage revealed a crimson glimmer emerging from the center of that shadow, resembling an eye, scanning its surroundings. Then, it silently slithered to the feet of one actor, suddenly surging from the ground like a ferocious black beast swallowing him whole. This scene terrified the other actors, 2 of whom scrambled off the stage, while the actress who was performing with the unfortunate actor fainted on the spot, her eyes rolling back. After enveloping the actor, the shadow gradually faded, transforming into a thin layer of shadow covering the actor's body. The actor's eyes were tightly shut as if he were asleep. In the next moment, a crimson vertical eye suddenly opened in the center of the actor's forehead, emitting an eerie glow. After being possessed by this crimson shadow, the actor ignored his unconscious colleague on the ground, calmly removed his costume, walked off the stage, draped a black coat from the audience area over himself, and picked a black top hat from the costume rack on the side of the stage. Then he lifted his head, peering through the low brim of the black hat, and glanced at the camera with his crimson vertical pupil. A slight smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. He turned his head, casually picked up a prop cane, tapped it 3 times on the ground and then vanished from sight. The footage ended there. That's it. Bai Li Pangpang looked up in confusion. He didn't kill anyone? No, the actors on stage all survived, but the male actor who was possessed is still missing and unaccounted for, the officer replied. And Qingyu raised his head, his gaze fixed on the stage in front of him, deep in thought. What are you thinking? Lin Qie walked over to him. Captain Guang was wrong, and Qingyu slowly said. It doesn't have a high intelligence. It possesses extremely high intelligence. He extended his hand, pointing to the darkness in the upper right corner of the stage. The position of this surveillance camera is very concealed. Even if one looks closely, it's hard to discern its presence. Yet this mystery saw through its position at a glance, and it naturally put on the clothes and hat. Its behavior and demeanor are nothing like a mystery, but rather like a real person.